Gemara. Today's daf is a pay. We learned the Mishnah now that when you write a get, you have to write down the date of the latest monarch. If you write for another monarch, it is a apostle get. And then we wrote the wrong place in east or the west. It's apostle. You change the name to the apostle, and if she went ahead to get married based on that get, so she was like a married woman marrying a second person. So she cannot no longer live with a second person, but no, she should go back to the first person could be penalized. She should have been more careful and ready to get first. And we had a big machlekes between Rashi and Taisus and many Rishonim. According to Rashi, since with the Rabbana the get is puzzle, it automatically becomes puzzle mahatayra as well. So really, she is still married to the first person, and technically she's not married to the second person. But we penalize her for the second person also, that she still needs to get from him and all these other things because of behavior. And others learn, like Rabbi Elchanan and others, they learn the way around. That the get is a valid get, so she's no longer married to the first person. She's really married to the second person, but nevertheless, she needs another get from the first person and all that because we cancel her, and she forfeits a ksuba and all those things. And then we said also about we'll conclude about Arayas, which we'll come back to when we get to the part of the Gemara. First, the Gemara says, "My malchus she'ena against." Instead of writing down the local monarch, he wrote of another kingdom, which is inappropriate. Malchus Haremim, that's the Roman Empire. My kodle malchus again is why is this inappropriate monarchy? Because Ainlam like Savla Lush, they don't have their own language and their own alphabet. They adopted it from other countries, and therefore, they're not considered a Hagen. Why by a get you have to record Malchus? Dated back to the local monarch. So give them the covet, and we want to live peacefully with our neighbors. Says the Gemara, okay, Shol Malchus. If you didn't follow it, you didn't put it down. You're telling me that if she marries a second person, she has to leave that marriage, and that the child's a mamzer to that extent. Yes, and I made it as consistent as you. Rabbi said, if you do not follow the prescription of Chachamim, the child is a mamzer. So we're talking about now that a get has to be dated back to the local monarch. So and exactly, and then so you don't need Shol Malchus. You guys bend over backwards more than most other countries do. To appease the Americans and so on. Well, we had Naran and Adorim, but there's no din of Malchus and Yisrael, according to him, because a king can evict people from the house of not Yisrael. They don't have the right. He has forever. That's so. Okay. Teisha said there's only talking about Gittin because Gittin is such a hush of a thing that there we have to show that we're citizens of this country. In other starters to document, you don't necessarily have to date to the local monarch. So anyone further, the Shemachos Yavon, what do you have all these examples for? Shemachos again is Malchus Yavon and so on. Churban based. We already know that if you wrote Rome, it's the wrong thing. It's not your country. I'm sure the Miliche, because they were current monarchs, and you're disrespectful to your local monarch. You dated to another country monarch. Which is history. The king gets offended. It's nothing. At least the monarchs, if he still gets offended, you're going to date it back to a monarch, date it back to us. If you dated back to the binyan, you're not offending anybody. No, you're about to put something commendable there. Put us in there. Why put the binyan bayis? The tzara who's painful, the king would be envious if he put the churban bayis on your star. Aim if you need all these cases. You in the East, he wrote down the places Ma'ariv. It's no good. So you want a man who wrote it down? Elema Baal, the husband wrote, well, instead of writing the place where they gave the get, he wrote a wrong place. No, one of the cases later in the Mishnah is he changed the name, he changed the cities. So it's already recorded. The Mishnah already mentioned this halacha. Elalav Sefer. Where the Sefer wrote the get. And Taisa says it means a sefer of the Adam signing. Rav wrote to his scribe. Huna wrote to his scribe, and he said to them, when you are sitting in Shili, and then write that the start is in Shili, because that's what the Adam are going to sign. Even though you were instructed in Bihini. And they said they were next door to each other, but so close. But even though you were instructed Bihini and you went to Shili to write it, write Shili. The Chiyaslit to Bihini, Ksiva Bihini, write Hini. And the Taser said the reason is because it looks like Mechzik Shikra. If you write a different city, if anybody sees it, they'll write and say, hey, the whole thing looks fraudulent because you got this part wrong as well. That's something else. That's right. If you're how localized it. But Taser talks about the issue is if you write a ksuva, the wedding is going to be somewhere in the vineyards outside of Melbourne, but you're writing it here in your office. So what do you write? You write Poib in Melbourne, or you write Poib wherever it is. You're out in the outback somewhere. Yeah, exactly. Which is you right. Doesn't matter further. Amar Avinu Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda comes along and says the name of Shmuel. Zu divrei Rab Meir. This is the view of the Rab Meir that what? That it gets possible if you miss out Shalom Malchus, but what do the Chacham hold? And the halacha like the Chacham is. What do the Chacham hold? So we have 2 days in the Gemara. You have Shmuel here and Rab a bit further. Avol Chacham, I mean, according to one Pirish, should have himself saying this as well here. The Chacham say, "Afilu lekosav Hashem Santa Shabira Heiz Megidashes." You don't have to have Shalom Malchus at all. Even you wrote it for the local person there whose job is to decide the boundaries of people's fields. A petty officer, good enough. In other words, we don't need Shalom Malchus at all. That's not how she learned. We don't need Shalom Malchus local lechamim. It was again because of the Shem is Tadandra de Beschar. It recorded the governor of this region called Beschar. What's it did my? According to Meir, it's no good. What about Rabbanon? Not only could Rabbanon is it good, even a mayor is good. Why is it good? My time in because this person works for the government. So therefore, it's as if you're dated to the Roman. Yeah. Well, my Islam is Santa Shabir. So why in the case before the Santa Shabir, the guy who works at the property boundaries? Why is that person we said before the getting possible? Hasam Zil Mil. So there he's such a low petty officer that it's embarrassing the government that you're dating it to him. Here, this is a very chashuv job, the governor of the region, and the governor represents the monarch, so therefore the monarch doesn't get offended at all if you feel that you included it. So according to this version, the way the Rashi learns, the Chacham hold you don't need any dating at all to any malchus. No, you don't need dating, b'chal. There's another version is like dating right Shemitah with Shemitah, and is it? Yeah, but you don't need malchus at all. You don't need malchus. Oh, these words are made. The Chachamim say havlad kosher. That if she remarried, the vlad is kosher, which means according to this version, most agree that the star is no good. That you have to write a proper star and date it to the money. But the ever if you did it and she got married, no, the vlad is kosher. But the other cases, havlad mamzer. The vlad is a mamzer. Ramashi says, so the way we're learning about right now, Rameh and the Chacham are arguing whether you have to date it to Shalom Malchus or not. So Taisa has a big problem. How do we date today all about contracts and ksubas or gittin will be a so'ilim? When even according to Chachamim in the second version, the halach is like Rav against Shmuel. Even according to Chachamim, you have to date it to the local to a monarch. How can you go back to B'riyah So'ilim? That's Taisa's question. By the way, the Rebbe uses a raya. Every single detail in the get has to be correct. There's machlekes are showing you if you add details to the get which are not relevant to the get, what happens. You write, for example, the city which she was born. Isha Hayudua came from the city. Turned out to be that was wrong. Does that possible to get? You put in unnecessary information, but it's wrong information. Big machlekes are showing him how do we treat that. So the Rebbe says because we date and says the words L'briya Sa'olam, so all these shittas that say that each day in creation was 1 billion years, that's how they reconcile, we'll call them apologists, reconcile the secular world and the third world. It's impossible according to us because then all I get would be possible. Because this is not even unnecessary information. We need to date the star. So if you dated the wrong date, because it's not 5,783 years old, the world might be billions of years old, then our stars are all possible. How can that be?
So what stage in the Tucker start writing So'ilim?
Oh, so Taser wants to know. So Taser wants to say, according to this one version, that in those days when there was a Malchus, then Shalom Malchus to write it. Today we don't have Malchus, even in Taser's at times. I'm surprised they said there's no Malchus. We're Malchus already. There's still King of France. Yeah, King of France. No, the religion, the Pope probably more powerful than the king, wasn't he? Even in other countries in Europe. Yeah, for sure. The Crusades in times of Taser.
Yeah, but
that was Richard Liner, but whatever. But they're encouraged by religion. He was all motivated by religion.
Religion. very often what you had is like Germany wasn't a proper country.
Yeah, but he didn't. Yeah, but Taisa is saying in our times and Taisa is living in France. There were kings then.
Yeah.
As I'm not sure exactly what he means, but he says here. But another pshat that Rabbi Tam argues, he says that they're not arguing on dating. Everyone, there's no machlekes about dating, and what the machlekes here is about shem ira, other things there. Not so much about dating.
Talk about these issues of dating. Don't comment on it.
No, but then another part of this is that today the Malchus don't really care what you write under the contract. But I think if I remember correctly, Napoleon, when he set up in the 1800s, one of the takanas he made with that big bezel that he had was about the Gittin. No, but he wanted the Gittin. The Gittin should be a document recognized, written in a way of the format of the Goyim, and maybe I can't remember all the details of what he wanted, but it was very important the Gittin should be done in the French way. Anyway, there's any more.
First response that which I really felt it says that I think we'll look at this more. Even in his time, also.
That's true. But Abiyah said that Achshav in a mouth is Makpedis. They don't really care. Another pshat is another version that they, in fact, even in Nachmed, that they're not really arguing because even the Chachamim say in the first version, at least you wrote somebody. You wrote, okay, a low petty officer, but nevertheless, he's still part of the kingdom. No one says you don't have to write any kingdom at all. But that makes the Akash even stronger. Anyway, let's continue about further. I'm going to learn. Shina in our Mishnah clearly he says in the Mishnah Shina Shmoi. The Shma Shem Ida, if Shem Ida, if he changed the name, take him that. Now, who learned this part of the Mishnah? Elam but Meir, according to you, if the Mishnah is a Meir, Arvinu, well, listen, Meir says that if you don't write the Shem Malchus or you change the city, according to Meir, that it's exactly the same. The get is possible. So why do you separate them in two separate categories? It must be the Rabban Shmamina. The Rabban only argue by. So that's only argues by the case where you change the name of the Malchus, the Shalom Malchus, but the other parts of the Mishnah is the Rabban Amayda, the Shem Ira is a problem. Then further, then the Mishnah said, then the Mishnah said, this is a harsh one. Now let's say, for example, we learned in Gemara Yavamis, if two sisters married two brothers, so Reuben and Shimon married two sisters, Rachel and Leah, and then Reuben also has other wives. So because Leah, when Reuben passed away with no children, Leah cannot be involved in the Yibum because her sister married to Shimon. So then none of the co-wives, none of the tzaras also are involved. So what happened was that one of these co-wives went to get married to somebody else. And it turned out to be that Leah, who was let's say, the woman who was married to Shimon, turned out to be was an islandess, which means that she was never married to the brother, for example. Therefore, they had a mitzvah yibum. There was never a mice of tzaras, of co-wives of tzaras, because there was no tzara here of erva. There's no erva here because it turned out to be that wife of Shimon was an islandess, and meanwhile she got married to somebody else. Now it turned out to be in sin. So we said Teitzim Mazeh, and all that. Says the Gemara, first of all, it says Nesuye only if she married somebody else. Seems like, but Zimi, if she only has nus with somebody else, she can go back to the Yavam. So if she married somebody else, then Teitzim Mazeh means she cannot go back to the Yavam. She cannot go back to the guy she's married to right now. And but Nisu, if they got married. Of a zinu light says the Mishnah. Lema to have it to you to the Kasha Manuna. Why? Lamanuna Shemeres Yavam is in Sosoli Vamma. Manuna says to Shemeres Yavam Zana, she's forbidden to her brother-in-law. So we see over here that what? That only Nisa, not like a Manuna that says even Mus. Nisa, what did you say? I said, why is the Mishnah saying this? It could be a bigger chiddush that even if she was Mizana, she can't go back to brother-in-law. Lishla Ma'alma because you wanted to speak in the diplomatic language. The others say Nisu. Another version is I think the same thing applies to Sindri. New label say that I think forbidden. The loyal Nisu Dafka that even a Shemeres Yom Shemazana she cannot go live with her brother-in-law. And Gemara says, "Look, maybe Nisu Dafka. Why should there be a distinction whether she married somebody else or she Mazana somebody else, whether she go back to the brother-in-law? Should the Mechelfa be Isha Shahala Baila the Medina Sayam? If a woman's husband went overseas and then she was informed the husband died, so she went and married somebody else, when he came back, the din is she cannot live with the second guy, the first guy, no l'chayda, that l'chayda, she's still married to the first guy. L'chayda, her marriage, second guy was never a marriage, and it's not considered that she was mizana because it was an English. She was told the husband is dead. So why take some zemazeh? So we're worried, because Xeda we living about is Xeda that if she people will think that she got a divorce from the first husband, she married the second guy, and now she's going back to the first husband. That a divorcee who married somebody else in between, then decided, rethought, reconsidered, and went back to her husband, is allowed to. That's what we asked it. So same thing here when it comes comes to Yibum. People will think that she married this guy here because she received the chalitza from the Yavam, and then they see that she's talking in the case of marriage. Then she's divorced, and then she goes back to the Yavam. So they'll think that after the chalitza of the Yavam, you can go back and marry the Yavam. That's why we stop it. That's how Rashi learns. This agrees. That's how Rashi learns. Hakoinus is the event. So we had two cases. One case is where her tzara was an erva, and therefore she just went scot-free and married somebody else. Another case was that there was no tzara. There were two wives married to Reuben, and then one of them married Shimon. The other one decided to get married. Turned out to be the one who married Shimon was an analyst. Now that means that there had to be a young girl. She never reached puberty, and then you wait for a certain period of time, and then you realize, hey, you have all the simonim, and you reach a certain age, you're going to be an analyst, because you have the simonim of an analyst. What do you need both cases for? One where she married somebody else, and there's a tour of Ibn. The other one is where your tzara married the Yavam. The Yeshvin have come out in the case where she married somebody else, and nobody married the Yavam because her co-wife was an erva. Nobody fulfilled the mitzvah of Ibn. So therefore, we're going to penalize her and say you should have waited until to see what happens with your tzara, the erva. I will hochav the kindness even the second case with your co-wife married the Yavam. So the mitzvah evil was done. You did the right thing. The co-wife married the Yavam. Now you went free. Maybe we don't penalize it. That's Marshal you do. In the second case, from the code the Ramya Kamei, you had a full mitzvah of Yibum, so you should have waited to see whether the mitzvah was played out properly. I will also believe it was an error, means there's no mitzvah in the first place. Ramya Kamei. Maybe that's why we shouldn't penalize her if she married somebody else. What did she do wrong? Then the Mishnah concludes, cost of us Sefer, the Sefer wrote it, and he made a mistake. He gave the receipt to the wife and the get to the husband, and a while later they pulled it out and they say, hey, she was never divorced, and therefore if she married somebody else, she has to step out of the marriage. So the Tanakhama says, okay, there's no get, and according to Rabbi Lazar, it depends if it happens straight away, there's no get, but if it happened a while later, we think that maybe they got together and decided, you know what, we want to get back together, and they made up the story, concocted the story. What's straight away? And the what's a while later? Kolzman, they're still there talking about get Zol Alta. The moment they finish with the procedure and with the whole process of the get, and then we start to we're worried maybe there's a communion, maybe some deal going on between the two, and so on. Nisa Zol Alta. That you know that if you that Alta means as long as she didn't get remarried, that's called Alta. It could be a year later. But once you get remarried, and then the husband produced the get, and now you want her to leave the second marriage, that we say there's something going on here. Nisa Zolachazman. If you married, it could be 2 years later. Says the Gemara, Tanan, our mission says the reason why we don't believe the husband is like Hemlim in Harishan, the husband does not believe to take away all the rights from the second husband. Isn't it clear in our mission that we're talking about she married somebody else? Because if she didn't marry somebody else, and learned the first verse, Achramah means after she left the Bezdin and everything else. What sheni? Which sheni is he harming the husband? There's no sheni involved there. So the Gemara Bishlam about Hein for the sheni. She remarried, so therefore there's another person involved. Elo l'shmuel my sheni. According to Shmuel, it happened right after they walked out. What's a sheni? It means now a second person has a right to marry, and the first person by saying the original husband saying that there's no get over here. You're taking away, denying her the opportunity to marry a second person. That's what's no information one way or another. We'll stop over here. We'll continue tomorrow night on Zoom.